With all the gloom and doom that's going on right now with coronavirus, and we all have got to take our social distancing and all this, and you know, that's all well and good, but I think there's time for a little bit of fun. I've got a lot of questions about the Stearman and about the Airpark where I live, so today we're going to tell the story of 476 and Bourland Field Estates where I live. So stick with us on Flywire. Hey, I'm Scott Perdue, and today on Flywire, I'm going to tell you the story of 476. Been in the family over 40 years now, and then we're also going to talk about Bourland Field Estates. This is a throwback kind of a situation since the coronavirus, and we have to basically stay at home a lot and do social distancing, and I've had a lot of time to go through some old stuff. This is the Wings to Adventure first episode, and I've cut it up for my evil purposes. And many thanks to the Outdoor Channel and Wings to Adventure, but this is fun for today, so hope you like it. We're going to take a look at the Stearman first, and then Bourland Field Estates.
A real stick and rudder plane that taught a generation of fighter pilots to fly. Whether seen at an air show, carrying the adventuresome on their first open cockpit ride, or as a crop duster, for many, the Boeing Stearman remains the essential biplane. Over half the pilots trained in World War II got their first flights in the Stearman, and today it's a favorite of those who love aviation history, or just delight in the goggles, leather helmet, and wind-in-the-face thrill delivered in every Stearman ride. Scott Perdue, call sign Gunny, flew F-4 and F-15 fighters for the Air Force, but for pure fun and a family connection, he straps into the Stearman.
That's a PT-17 Stearman. It's actually my dad's airplane. I inherited it from him, you could say. It's a World War II trainer. Back in World War II, they had probably about 3 different types of trainers, and this probably did about half of the pilot training, primary pilot training in World War II. It was designed by Lloyd Stearman, so everybody calls it a Stearman. But Stearman Company built it, but Stearman Company was owned by Boeing, so it's actually a Boeing. You want to freak a tower guy out, tell him Boeing so-and-so's on short final.
For Gunny Perdue, flying the Stearman is more than just a fun outing. It's also a family connection.
Like I say, it was my dad's airplane. It's been in the family about 26 years. Kind of grew up with it and through high school and all that, and learned how to fly. And my dad taught me how to fly this airplane. And it was involved in an accident in, was it 92, and I spent about 10 years rebuilding it. After all that time, I took it to Oshkosh, 2003, and we won a bronze Lindy there, which is great, and that was a pretty good result after 9.5, 10 years of work. I spent some time enlisted in the Marine Corps and started my private license during that time, got my private license, and then with a college degree I went into the Air Force, and in the Air Force I flew F-4s and F-15Es, the Strike Eagle. The Stearman is just basic flying. It's stick and rudder, and the throttle and the stick is right where it's supposed to be, and the airplane's responsive, and it's challenging to fly, and it's rewarding. The reward is right now, but it's just fun flying, every bit of it.
It's not a high-performance aircraft, and that's part of the appeal.
The saying is on a Stearman, if you do everything at about 65 knots, you're doing good. And that's just about true. It'll do about 90 knots on cruise. But other than that, it's not. It will do 150 straight down, but that's about it.
A simple plane, the Stearman just seems more at home on grass strips.
The big thing about tail wheels is you got to kill your drift. And the grass is much nicer, more tolerant.
It's a trainer, and it has lessons to teach. Some lessons come from the plane, but for Perdue, many lessons came from his father.
We shared it together. We used to fly it together and have landing contests. He was always better at 3 points than I was, but I got better at wheel landings than he was.
Leaving history and tradition aside, the main reason pilots and passengers love the Stearman is the experience of open cockpit flight.
You see the world in a whole different perspective, framed by those two wings.
Many pilots have dreamed of living with their airplane, having the hangar attached to the house, being able to go in and do a little work on it, or maybe even just look at that beautiful airplane. Well, the people here at Bourland Field Estates, just southwest of Fort Worth, Texas, are living that dream.
It's always kind of been a dream of mine. It seemed like driving all the way out to the airport to spend time with my airplane, which I spend a lot of. I've always liked enjoying working on them as well as flying, and do a little restoration work, and I also do a little teaching. So the thought of living right at the airport where all my toys are right next to my house seemed like a great idea.
The idea is to be close to your plane and to live with others who share your passion, if not obsession, with aviation. Here, you're just as likely to see a Beechcraft as you are a Buick on the streets. Remember, at Bourland Field, even on the streets, aircraft have the right-of-way. Ask them why they love Airpark life, and one word keeps popping up.
Convenience, for me at least. I mean, being able, like building a kit airplane and being able just to walk out of your kitchen into the hangar to start work, it's fantastic. And then if you want to take a break, go in and get a cup of coffee, you know, it's 20 steps instead of a 20-mile drive or whatever.
You can wake up in the morning and the sun's shining and the birds are singing, and just run out and fire up and go fly around a pattern a few times. It's a great way to start the day. I got to realize one of my dreams here too. When I first moved here, I was a full-time flight instructor over at the Granbury Airport. And so for the first time in my life, I could go out in the morning, open the hangar, get in my airplane, fly to work, teach there all day, and then get my airplane and fly home. And that had always kind of been a dream of mine, and I got to realize that. So I was pretty lucky.
The convenience of walking out of your home and getting in an airplane and taking off, and not having to drive anywhere.
Part of the dream is designing and building a house and a hangar just the way you want.
Building for the pilots has been exciting because we get to be an integral part in fulfilling a part of their dream of living in an airpark, the convenience of living in an airpark where they're able to have their hobby close at hand rather than miles and miles away.
As long as you're building your dream, why not a swimming pool in the shape of a plane? Doug Steen's creation was the talk of the neighborhood.
My wife and two daughters and we just sat down and drew profiles of swimming pools, and one of us had the idea of an airplane, and then it was a consensus immediately. Everybody knew it had to be an airplane. So after a couple of days, we settled in on the plan form of the Bonanza. We tried to give it a V-tail, just like our Bonanza. With your imagination, you can imagine that the spa and the steps look kind of like gear wells.
The pilots may come to Bourland Field Estates thinking about planes and hangars, but they quickly realize there's something else that makes this place special.
I think a big part of it is the people. It's just a wonderful place to live because everybody has a common interest, and you open your hangar door and the next thing you know there's 4 people leaning in there talking to airplanes, and what could be better than that?
And there's just always something going on. The neighbors are just wonderful. There's usually at least one party a month, and we go out walking together, we do fly-ins together. It's not uncommon to get somebody to just call you and say, let's go out for breakfast, and we hop in our airplanes and fly somewhere and have breakfast. We just love being here because the neighbors are wonderful. We like the atmosphere. The whole subdivision is just beautiful.
Hardly a snap decision, many residents took years to find the right place.
Living in the Airpark has been a dream of mine. This is the 8th time I've relocated from one state to another with my employer, Lockheed Martin. And every time I have looked at Airpark homes. And this is the first time that we've been able to strike a compromise where my wife and I both felt like all of our needs were being satisfied.
A big part of that satisfaction is the social life, from a breakfast flyout to a hangar party.
It's not much different than living anywhere else, other than the fact that you can just taxi your airplane out down the street and go flying. You know?
I'm just in heaven. I'm 20 minutes from work and we've got a hangar attached to the house.
This is the most wonderful place we've ever lived in all of our lives. And we've lived in Saudi Arabia, we've lived in Alaska, we've lived in Washington State, we've lived all over. But this is number one.
Those looking for the intersection where life merges with dreams might want to mosey down to the Fort Worth area and visit Bourland Field Estates.
It's an ideal life.
So I hope you liked the story about the Stearman and Bourland Field Estates. This is a fantastic airplane to fly, as I mentioned and talked about it. Seeing the whole world framed by the two wings, it's just, I love it every time I go flying in it. And living in an airpark is really a hoot. And some people like living on golf courses, some people like living on lakes. I like living on an airport, and I wouldn't trade it. And the place is really great. It's grown a lot since what you've seen in that video there and the Wings to Adventure shoot. For instance, we only have 2 lots left that have been unsold, and there's currently like 3 houses that are finishing and 4 that are getting ready to start. So we're almost built out. It's a fantastic Leave It to Beaver kind of a neighborhood, and it's great neighbors and mixed with airplanes. This doesn't get better than that. So thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit subscribe. Should be right down there. And the bell if you want notifications of the next time video comes out. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Flywire.